It was supposed to be a peaceful hike, a glacier stream, some photos, and nothing but quiet. But when 61-year-old Kell Morris slipped, the mountain came alive. A boulder, the size of a small car, snapped loose and crushed him face down in freezing water. For the next 3 hours, he lay trapped under 700 pounds of rock, with his head barely above the current. And what saved him? Not luck, not strength, but something far more human. Kell Morris wasn't a rookie hiker. He'd spent years exploring the rugged terrain of Alaska. But on May 24th, 2025, even experience couldn't protect him. That morning, he and his wife, Jo Roop, set out for a day hike near Godwin Glacier, about 20 miles southeast of Anchorage. It was remote, wild, and stunning. Exactly the kind of place Kell loved. They followed a faint trail near a fast-moving glacier stream. The area was rocky and unstable, but manageable. Then, at some point along the edge of the water, everything went wrong. Kell lost his footing on a slick rock, stumbled, and fell forward into the stream bed. That's when it happened. A nearby boulder, estimated to weigh over 700 pounds, suddenly shifted. It tumbled forward and slammed onto Kell's back, pinning him chest down into the freezing water. The impact was immediate, bone-crushing. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe deeply. Jo Roop, just a few steps behind him, ran forward in horror. Kell was completely trapped. The current rushed around him as he lay submerged from the shoulders down, water pouring over his body, rocks pressing into his ribs. She tried to move the boulder herself. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. It wasn't just sitting on him. It was wedged between other stones and the natural curve of the stream, locked in place like a clamp. Kell was still conscious, but fading fast. The water was glacial. He was soaked, pinned, and hypothermia had already started. Jo Roop didn't panic. She didn't scream. She did exactly what years of training had prepared her to do. Before retiring, Jo had served as an Alaska state trooper. She'd seen emergencies before, but this was personal. Her husband was face down in glacier runoff, pinned by a rock that could have crushed his spine, and there was no one else for miles. If she didn't act fast, he would die. Quick break. We make videos about real stories that sound made up. From survival to strange true events, if it actually happened and it's unbelievable, we cover it. So if you're into that, hit subscribe. It helps more than you know. All right, let's get back to the video. First, she stayed low and wedged herself beside him, using her arms to hold his head above the waterline, just enough so he could keep breathing. The current was icy and relentless, and if his face dipped just 2 inches lower, he'd drown. But Jo knew she couldn't stay like that forever. Kell was already slipping into hypothermia, his lips turning blue, his body shaking violently. The cold was shutting his organs down. Time wasn't just running out, it was nearly gone. So she made a decision. She looked at him and said, in the most calm, focused voice he could imagine, "Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back." That line stuck with him. Later, Kell said, "She graciously tells me, 'Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.'" Jo hiked 300 yards back towards cell signal, over unstable terrain, soaked to the bone and panicked but focused. She finally got through to emergency dispatch, gave their exact GPS coordinates, and relayed Kell's condition. The operator knew they didn't have long. They immediately activated a rescue team from Bear Creek Volunteer Fire Department, plus a medical helicopter crew stationed in the area. Everyone dropped what they were doing and scrambled into motion. Jo sprinted back to Kell. He was still alive, but barely. The water was now pulling harder over his chest, and his breathing was shallow. He told her later that he had started saying goodbye in his head. When the first rescue team arrived, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. A man face down in a freezing stream, barely conscious, with a 700-pound boulder crushing his back, and his wife kneeling beside him, still holding his head above water. It had already been nearly 3 hours. Every second counted. The firefighters from Bear Creek didn't wait. They immediately began assessing the scene. One rescuer started stabilizing Kell's head and vitals, while the others prepped tools, including high-pressure airbag systems, the same kind used to lift vehicles and crash rescues. But there was a problem. The rock wasn't just heavy. It was locked into place, wedged between other boulders in the stream bed. The freezing water made it harder to position equipment. One wrong move could cause the rock to shift, crushing Kell completely. and they still didn't know the full extent of his injuries. Then came the helicopter, slicing through the air above the creek bed, kicking up wind and mist. More medics rappelled down. It was a full-blown mountain rescue operation now. With teamwork and precision, the rescue crew finally managed to wedge an airbag under one edge of the boulder, then slowly inflate it. The rock began to rise, inch by inch, enough space for them to slip Kell out from underneath. He was pulled out alive, cold, shivering, bruised, but breathing. Joe broke down in tears. Kell couldn't speak at first. He was too cold, too shocked. But when the medics asked him to move his legs, he could. Everyone on scene realized this shouldn't have happened. You don't survive 3 hours face down in glacier water. You don't walk away from a 700-pound rock. But somehow, he did. Kell was flown out by helicopter to a nearby hospital. When doctors examined him, they were stunned. He had no broken bones, no spinal damage, just deep bruising, facial cuts, and early-stage hypothermia. The fact that he was even alive made headlines across Alaska. In interviews days later, Joe explained how she had to stay calm and keep his head out of the water, because she knew if he dipped under even once, it was over. She credits the rescue crew, the helicopter pilot, and maybe even divine luck for giving them a second chance. As for Kell, he told reporters he doesn't remember much from the middle hour. He was in and out of consciousness, fading, his body shutting down from the cold. But he remembers Joe's voice, and he remembers one thing. He thought it was over, but she never gave up. And that's the only reason he's alive today. Real story that sounds made up. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. If you want more stories like this, we've got another one waiting for you right here.